Hello, gorgeous faces. It's so nice to see you all here. I knew you'd all come flooding in for Joel. Okay, here we go. Oh, do you know, by the way, in case I haven't embarrassed you enough before the call, since we started these calls, I keep having people send me sneaky messages going, when are you going to ask Joel on? Can't you ask? But something, it was like the calls were on the days that your classes were, and I wasn't sure about the timings, but I'm glad we finally gotten a chance to make it happen. Okay, let's let everyone in. Hold on,
Hi,
hold on.
Laura. Hi,
Okay,
Jim.
here we go. Admit all. Somebody's trying to join. I think they're trying to join from
Hi,
like
Nancy.
2 different phones. Okay. Okay, guys. Now, you know the rules. Please try not to. I've instructed Joel to please ignore the chat. I have a feeling already he's going to have a hard time with that because you're all his dear friends and you've all been on his course. But you know the rules. No boring questions. If you can find it on Google, I am so not interested. Quirky questions only. Throw them at me. Make sure to type the word question before it so I know that it's a question and we will get to it through the call, I promise. And we will launch in. I've heard so much about Joel, and I told him the only reason I haven't taken his class is because I was gonna, when I'm skinny, because I heard a rumor that you have to show up on camera. I'm sorry, when you've been trying to act your whole life, it's like what is it, an earworm? It gets in your head. Like you gotta be skinny if you're gonna show up on, which it's not true now, but I'm really old. Okay, Joel, 10-year-old
Yes.
Joel. Where were
Yes.
you? What did you want to do? The quirky questions are coming in already. That's a good one. I will hit him with it later, Nancy. Where were you? What were you thinking? What were you, I'm gonna be when I grow up? Tell me about 10-year-old Joel.
10-year-old Joel, probably by that point, I'm not sure about 10-year-old Joel. 12-year-old Joel wanted to be an actor. 10-year-old Joel probably thought he was going to be in some sort of graphic art kind of place. But then when I was 12, we went to London, and my mother and I went and saw Me and My Girl in the West End, which was a musical which had Emma Thompson as the female lead.
Now, where are you from? Where were you from? Where were you living?
I am from Bermuda, which is a British colony.
Wow.
So I
That's
grew
exotic.
up, the only reason, so this accent is kind of learned. I had to neutralize my American accent when I went to college. But I grew up in an all British school, everyone surrounded by everyone British. My best friend was Scottish. My teachers were Welsh and Irish and Scottish and Liverpool and Manchester. And so I grew up entirely around British sounds. But anyway, so we went to London and saw Me and My Girl, and with Robert Lindsay, who recently was in Anything Goes that they broadcast in cinemas with Sutton Foster. But anyway, we saw that with Emma Thompson and Robert Lindsay, and I fell madly in love with the theater and with performance and with acting. And I was in a play at school, and the teacher who directed the piece, it was a very cheesy musical about Nicholas Nickleby, called Smike. But the teacher came up to my parents afterwards and said, "I've never said this to anyone before, but maybe you should consider letting him do this." And I really owe him a lot, because at a very young age, like from around, I was probably around 10 at that point, he instilled in my parents that it was not just a whim,
It was viable.
on my part, that
Yeah.
it was something that someone outside thought
Yeah.
there was potential there. So I was very lucky, and my parents have always been incredibly supportive in every way, from the very beginning, so I was super lucky.
I love that. I love that. So so at that point, after you'd seen that, now that's it. Nothing's going to stop you. I'm going to live the
Yeah.
dream.
Yeah, I mean, started taking dance classes when I was a kid, and was the only boy in the dance class, in ballet class, and started doing every community theater thing I could do, involved in every aspect, backstage and on stage. If there wasn't a part for me, I would work on props or whatever backstage. So I really it became very much my sort of entire life plan up through to college. So I never really wavered from that. That was always what the plan was going to be.
But did you always, because I think it's obvious to everyone, you're exceedingly talented. Like in your bones, talented. Is that a feeling you carry with you and a knowledge that you had at a young age? Or did you not see it or feel it or know it? Was it?
I
don't like to couch questions. I'm asking them.
I wish I have, I mean, it's very kind of you to say, I have horrifying imposter syndrome. Horrifying. It's one of the reasons why I have to have a very, very fixed, finite schedule that books me months in advance. And I have a page quota every day, because if I wasn't locked into having to make myself reach a certain point in a book at the end of the day, I would spin my wheels and be in my head and
oh my God, I love you. You're like my spirit animal
forever.
I love you.
I have really bad imposter syndrome.
And you feel that busy protects you from that, doesn't it? Because busy makes you feel like you've earned your keep.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. But also you have to kind of get past it and get the work done. Because if I don't get the work done, I'm not going to reach the next deadline and not finish the next book and not finish the next book after that and whatever. But yeah, no, I sometimes I'll listen back to something and go, that's not bad. That's not terrible. I can listen to that. But I know I really appreciate that. That's very kind. But no, I don't. There's my I don't want to say I don't have an actor's ego, because I do, but I have much more of a director's ego, which was sort of my other half of my life. For 20 years, I was a director. And
why were you a director for 20 years and not an actor?
Because I developed really bad stage fright.
Ooh, okay. When did this happen?
It happened, I guess, probably in my early 20s. But when I was in college, okay, I discovered that I loved directing, and because of the artistic graphic background, I also had a design sort of skill. Mm-hmm. And when I was at college, my professors sort of groomed that and really pushed me to sort of develop that aspect of myself. Okay. I think also because they were, they and I became aware that I was not the most castable type. I was not a leading male. This was, we're talking 20 years ago, and the 20-year-old gay who didn't know he was gay, vaguely flamboyant, awkward, nerdy thing was not something that when I went into casting calls, they knew what to do with. Okay. So I kind of realized that I was and I fell in love with directing and did that for many years. I went to London and I was the assistant director on things like A Delicate Balance with Maggie Smith and Eileen Atkins.
You worked with Maggie Smith?
Yeah,
Wow.
I worked in New York on lots of things. And then came back to performance through narrating, where it doesn't matter what you look like and you get to play all the parts. And that was kind of where and that directing hat, because you're so often self-directing, came in very, very handy for me.
Okay, but I'm bringing you back to, when did you develop stage fright? How did that happen for a boy that loved acting and felt good about himself?
I don't really remember when exactly it happened, but it was connected with being, it was the fear of the lines disappearing. It wasn't getting out there in front of the audience. It was the fear of the lines just not being there. And so, that's why the lines are in front of you. So
I love it. Yep, that's the two things. No more memorizing, and you don't have to go on a diet.
Yeah, exactly.
My perfect world. Okay, so did you conquer the stage fright? And at what point, and how did you do it?
I mean, I have not pursued stage acting really in a very long time. What I did do, we ran a theater company in Indiana for 10 years, my husband and I. And what I did do there was MC a lot of things. We did a series of almost like PBS documentaries about musical genres on stage, if that makes sense.
I love that. But how was working with your husband that closely on a project? Because that'd be hard. It wasn't that hard.
We worked very well together. Weirdly, we puzzle piece fit each other. He's very practical and he's very creative, but he's very practical and pragmatic and good with numbers and all that kind of thing. And I'm creative and wacky and artistic and messy. And so we kind of complement each other in that way. But so we ended up doing a lot of these productions where I would be the sort of oh God, what's his name in like the Turner Classic Movies, where the guy comes on and tells you about stuff, about the behind the scenes stuff before the movie starts. I would do that kind of thing, but I had the script in front of me. I would work with the script, so I became used to working an audience again and doing banter.
So you like the compare.
That was exactly what I did.
Yeah.
And I became more used to it then. And then I started there doing, and this is sort of what segued into the audiobooks, was I started doing one-man in our off season. I started doing one-man versions of things like Dracula and Treasure Island and Sleepy Hollow, and we did a Sherlock Holmes, and I did Christmas Carol every year. So but again, the script in front of me. So I haven't tried to conquer it without the script in front of me ever, really, since I sort of said, no, not going to happen.
Yeah.
But
it would probably just take one time.
But I'm very happy. But I'm very happy behind the mic. It's a good place for me, and I like playing all the parts. So
yeah, and we can still dress up. I still dress up. I don't see the difference. Except funny. I think Karen Commons had a brilliant idea, and I want to do that. She's got a machine that claps. And so I think that's the one thing I miss, is the audience clapping for you afterwards. And
that's hilarious.
So Dark Nights of the Soul, then, it all sounds like a very straightforward journey. And let me preface this with, I'm not just being especially mean asking you all the hard personal questions.
No, it's fine.
But I have a theory that people learn, but on online things like this, people log on and they learn the facts and the things they should do, but they don't often turn that into an action. They think, oh, that's Joel. Joel, I'm not Joel. Do you know what I mean? And
Mhm.
so what I love about getting people on these shows is if we get to come along for the ride, the good, the bad, the hard, and
Right.
and feel what it feels like to be Joel, not in a creepy, weird way, obviously, but feel like what it feels like to be Joel, then slowly people will, they understand they are Joel at a different place at a different time with different sets
I
of
think I know what you
talents.
mean.
You
Yeah.
know what I mean? So
Yeah.
what, like, if you had something that like was a challenge or a struggle for you that you've overcome at this point, what would Joel now wish he could like help Joel then with?
Oh,
Because a
well,
lot of people are new narrators listening to this.
so you mean in terms of narration?
In terms of life, acting, narration, the biggest, most profound lessons you wish you could
Oh
help yourself
God.
with and go back.
Well, there's two things. My father once told me no one is irreplaceable, and I think that was like really important advice for me to learn because I think it's very, very true that you have to kind of remember that in life.
Yeah.
Um, but also the best piece of it, this is going to sound very, very strange. The best piece of advice that I got regarding my directing career was I was assistant directing on a show, and a guy who was kind of very colorful New Yorker, uh, he was a brilliant actor, pulled me aside and he said, I'm going to tell you something. Nobody cares that you're smart.
Wait,
Because I
nobody
was
cares that you're smart?
yes, because I was the assistant. And it wasn't my job to be smart. It was my job to support the people who everyone was supposed to think were smart. And when I put myself forward and was trying to prove that I was smart, what I was doing was undermining them. And that came back to bite me in the ass in my career as a director. And I would have a very different life trajectory right now if I had been able to take that advice better. I know
Wait a minute.
it's very,
Isn't it another way of saying know your place?
it is kind of.
That
Yeah.
I would be tempted to punch him in the face.
Yeah,
Other than
yeah, it was really good advice at the time, and I didn't process it the right way. Um,
you see,
and
I don't
maybe
think I would have either. Oh
yeah.
no.
Um, but but when uh but yeah, if I had learned to keep my mouth shut sometimes when I was assistant directing, I'd have a very different career right now. Because I always wanted to do the best for the show. I always wanted to kind of like help
Right. Right.
and and make sure the product was the best it could be.
Right.
Um, and like one of the stupid things I did was, for example, I was working with the guy who directed Chicago. Um, and we were working on a production, and he had staged something that basically put a gigantic hole in the plot. The way he had staged
Yeah.
it,
Yeah. Yeah. I see what you're saying.
um, put a gigantic hole in the plot. And I pointed it out,
Right.
and I never worked with him again. And if I just kept my mouth shut, I would have
No,
worked
I
with him.
don't know. I don't know. I don't like
No,
that. I don't.
I know what you're saying. I don't like it either. I don't like it either. It's just the reality of what I live with.
I know, and
But
it's smart.
but
It's like
that's
get your ego out of the room,
yeah.
and but on the other hand, the part about that that really pisses me off is
Is it should be
how
about the
often,
work.
yeah,
It should
and
be
how
about
often
making
do
the
you
work as
mask
good as it
who
can
you
be.
are?
Yeah.
How
No, that's
often
true.
do you have to play? That's playing small.
Yeah.
I don't have respect for knowing your place. It
Yeah.
pisses me off.
But that is something about me that I have to admit is I'm not that great at playing well with others. I'm demanding. I'm very driven. I'm very perfectionist. And that's one of the reasons why kind of working to a degree in isolation or being my own boss is very good for me. Being my own creative boss has been very kind of healthy and good for me. And
you said,
gosh,
you said you'd have a very different career, right? Think about what
and I wouldn't change my career now. I love what I do.
Exactly.
I'm very happy with where I am and what I do.
If you had learned to suck it up silently and keep your mouth shut, you would have the career of a man that knows when to shut up.
Yeah. And what I'd be doing would be staging other people's work right now.
Right.
What I'd be doing is something like be the assistant director on Hamilton and be in charge of keeping it running and never be my own creative force.
Whereas now, once you die, they're going to write books about you and how you were curmudgeonly and maybe not the easiest person to work with, but oh my God, that talent. I'd much rather that.
I'm not sure I'm curmudgeonly.
I know, but the word sounds so good. I'm dying to use it.
It is a good word to use. It is a great word.
Plus, everyone, you say you're not easy to work with, but everyone loves you.
Thank you. I think as a teacher, I'm easy to work with.
Okay.
I think I'm just a perfectionist as a boss. And when I was directing or when I was creating. But as a teacher, I think I'm a very different animal. And still driven, still working to push people to be as good as they can be and get as much out of them as they can. And very perfectionist within myself to try and help them accomplish that. I really I get stressed before every class because I want to make sure they get something out of it. I get nervous because I want to make sure that they learn the lesson each class is supposed to teach. I want to make sure that they're growing. I want to make sure that they feel that it's worth their time and money. So I'm hard on myself, but I think that's okay.
And you said, because before the call, I mean, I'm going to embarrass him anyway, but I was saying to Joel that I think the difference between, I wonder what the relationship between his huge talent and then coaching and the separation, because you can't teach, I don't believe, that kind of like born talent. And you brought up Johnny Heller. And I mean, I'm like stalker level with Johnny Heller. Like, yeah, him and Joanna, I do think I'm like literally a fangirl. It's a bit embarrassing. And Hillary and all that, they're hugely talented, but they all have their thing that they coach. So when you're coaching or when you're teaching, what is it that you wish, the main core thing you wish people understood and that you wish they believed, understood, remembered, or took from the lessons, other than obviously the lessons themselves, the technicalities? What do you wish you could just plant in their heads to make it easier?
To remember to connect to the text as if you're having a conversation with someone in real life. That when we're narrating, we sometimes speak in ways that we absolutely do not when we're having a conversation. And if we can harness that connection, if we can harness the empathy, if we can really imagine having an actual scene partner that we're having a conversation with, our style of narration drastically changes. And if we can approach that, discovering in the text as things occur and always having empathy and a point of view, I think point of view is my biggest thing. I really believe you have to have a point of view with everything you say as a third person narrator and as a first person narrator. And my argument is, some people say that a narrator shouldn't have a point of view. And I'm like, if a narrator didn't have a point of view, then in the Harry Potter books, we would have found out that Snape was in love with Harry Potter's mother on page 5 of the first book. The narrator has a lens through which they are controlling your understanding of the narrative. They're making choices. They have an opinion and a point of view. And I think you've really got it. And I think if you connect to that, your narration comes alive.
It's especially important in thrillers because a lot of the times the narrator in some of the chapters is the killer, and you can't give away who it is. You can't tell them who it is, but you have to be able to portray that. Before I go in for every book, and nobody has ever been impressed. It's the thing that like I love the most about my whole job and everything I've ever done. And like not one person has ever gone, wow, that's amazing. But I record each character introducing themselves to each other with their personality and explaining what their problem or situation in the book is to each other.
Interesting.
So they have a relationship really outside the book before I start narrating.
That's really interesting.
I love it. It's like my favorite thing on earth to do. And I think it's genius. And like not one person, I've been bragging about it for 6 years. Nobody's been impressed. Are you impressed? You like, that's a good one, isn't it?
It's interesting. I think it's interesting. Well, it helps you empathize with the character and get in their head before you're jumping into it.
Thank you, Tad's impressed. And plus, because I've recorded it, I have already a recording of all their voices.
Yeah.
Let me throw some quirky questions in. Because they've been coming hard and fast, but I've been monopolizing you. Nancy wants to know who your favorite Muppet is.
Grover.
I'm assuming that's an inside joke.
I don't think. I don't think. I think she's just asking a goofy question.
Ooh, you're getting good with the quirky, Nancy. I'm impressed.
But I am very fond of Grover.
Okay. Kim says, very good director he is. Jim says, what is the hardest audiobook character you've ever voiced and why?
Oh, God. This is difficult.
Because you've done like what, 8,000 books. It's kind of hard to pick.
I've done almost 400. I'm at like 390 something. Oh God. I'm trying to think. I'm so sorry. There was the first thing that comes to mind is there was a Korean grandmother in a series I did, and she was really hard. Korean is not a dialect that is fun. And that was she was a minor character, but she was very quirky and colorful, and so
but really you have to be careful not to.
Exactly. She was written kind of over the top, but it was difficult to not make her, so that was really hard.
But if you do over the top, then you're
yeah. I think what I will say, something really interesting. I just recorded David Copperfield. And the wild thing about David Copperfield is almost every single secondary character at some point gets like a 4 or 5 page monologue. The way that it's written, like almost every single secondary character, except like waiters or like people that have like one line, but like even the eccentric, wackier, and Dickens writes very eccentric characters.
Yeah.
They ended up with these long exposition or action background monologues. And so you had, the thing that I talk about over and over again is take every character seriously. You had to sustain them as first person narratives. And that was really interesting to take kind of quirky character voices, because Dickens demands that in some ways, very eccentric personalities, and yet keep them constantly real and grounded and honest enough.
Because they don't know they're a quirky, eccentric character. They think they're,
Yeah. But to be able to sustain them in sometimes emotional or heart-rending or very subtle, detailed monologue was really an interesting challenge. I loved it. I really enjoyed it, but it was not easy. It was kind of exhausting.
Isn't that, oh my God, I've been I'm sure it's always there. It's especially there when you start, you go through these steep learning curves, right? But only recently I've stopped every once in a while and thought, oh, wow, wait, that's a learning curve. You know what I mean? And it's like, you watch yourself, I'm learning again, right? Like the more you learn, the more you start to really appreciate the hard parts where you're like, well, this really sucks right now. That means this is going to be a
Oh
learning
yeah,
curve.
absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Um, and that's why I think it's good to listen to yourself. That's why I read reviews. You know, I want to keep learning. I want to keep challenging myself. I want to
Yeah.
know what people think and process that and try and improve for the next book. So,
I have someone read my reviews for me.
well,
I have
that
a
makes
partner.
sense.
Yeah, I'm not reading them.
That's
Because
interesting.
you get me in a bad mood, and then Jimmy, that's just ordered Domino's pizza, is pissed off at the delivery driver and wants to write a 5-page review about how I sound like his mother.
Right.
But I have a partner that will give me feedback if I need it.
That's
You know,
great.
professional.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, that's so. How do you feel about that? And also because the whole thing in theater, I remember I quit. I quit acting for 2.5 years. Went into burlesque instead. I figure if you're going to give me a bad review, at least give it for something like, because I got a really bad review. I got a scathing. I played the Madame Melville. I played the obnoxious loud neighbor. And the reviewer literally wrote like 3 pages in the paper about how obnoxious and loud I was. God. And I was crushed. How do you deal with that kind of thing?
It can be hard. You know, and also because I recognize that my particular style is not necessarily for everyone. If somebody wants to listen to everything Scott Brick has ever recorded, they're probably not going to love my work. You know, I have a very specific style. I am very character driven. I try to be very emotionally connected to the text, and sometimes if sometimes that's not to everyone's taste. So you have to kind of, you know, realize, you know, not everybody, you're not going to be everybody's favorite thing. But and you kind of have to filter that out. Because, you know, I worshipped Katie Kelgren, who was big and theatrical and bold with her character choices. You know, Jim Dale is kind of what made me want to get into audiobook narration. Like, you know, and he is brilliant with characters and those kind of actors. That's kind of what I aspired to be. Davina Porter, people like that. But I find that when you do see trends in a review, you know, if more than one person is telling you something,
Yeah,
you should listen.
yeah, that's where having a partner is good, because there have been a few things that kept coming up.
Yeah.
Right? Like I didn't know I was doing it, but there was a certain type of character that I was automatically reading as stupid.
Oh,
And
interesting.
I didn't, it was subconscious. And the person was like, just because they're a such and such doesn't mean they're stupid. And I had to, and it came up like 3-4 times. And my partner was like, oh, well, there is something this month, because every month we check. And I had to check myself, because the truth was, it was like a not a prejudice, but it was in my mind. I hadn't realized it, hadn't known it, something I just grew up with.
Right.
And it was, you guys, just, it's nothing that anyone would automatically think of. It was like a certain trait of a certain person from a certain place that I just, in a certain religion, it was, you know, it's, I'm in no way prejudiced.
What I've had to teach myself to do is let myself try and sit in the good reviews as much as, if there's a, you know, because what my tendency is to do is to like skim over a good review and be like, yeah, whatever. Be like, that person clearly doesn't know what they're talking about. and then pay all the attention to the bad review. And that, if you let yourself sit in the good reviews and really like, and I take the time now to read it and process it and accept it and try and take it in to myself and let myself have that moment, then it's, you know, it can be a bolster as well as something that gets in your head and messes with you a little bit.
You see,
So
I
they
don't see my
balance it
good
out.
reviews either. But I saw a meme. It's so sad that I'm getting my knowledge of the world from memes now, but it made sense. It was stop trying to please everyone and make everyone love you. Rather, make the people that already love you. And then the people that don't love you, really, really revel in annoying them as much as possible. And I realized with like, because I'm not like, if you don't hire me for your book, and you go away and you say you'll think about it, or the publisher's going to make a decision, it's not going to be me. I'm not saying that in a bad way. I'm not a person you have to kind of maybe consider and think a lot about. You either love me or you hate my guts. It's one or the other. I'm good with
Makes
that.
sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So but it's strong. I think it's what you said as well. You know yourself well. You're character driven. It's strong decisions create a strong, I hate the word brand, but you know what I mean? You know who Joel is.
Yeah, absolutely.
No apologies. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I agree.
Okay, so challenges. Dreams, things you'd love to do, habits you'd love to change.
Oh God. Things I'd love to do. I'd love to be doing more middle grade books. I really enjoy doing those, and I like to get more of them. I've been getting quite a few like children's books, like younger children's books, and those are fun, but they only take like 15 minutes to record. You know, they're like 12 pages.
Which are YA? Is that middle grade?
YA is slightly older than that. YA is like 15, 16, 17.
Okay.
Middle grade is like, 10, 11, 12, 13. And I love to do more in that realm. I love doing the classics. I've been really lucky this year. This year I got to do Treasure Island and David Copperfield and Winnie the Pooh, and I did Christmas Carol on my own. So I got to do a lot of that stuff that I really, am passionate about and love doing. And I love
the writing is there. The writing's amazing.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
Yeah. That's half the challenge when it's really well written.
Yeah. I'd like to learn to take more time off. I think that would be important for me. I'd like to learn that. It's difficult with the narrating schedule and the teaching schedule. I just worked 7 weeks without a single day off. It was not smart. I do not recommend it. But I got the offer for David Copperfield and I just couldn't turn it down. And so David Copperfield is 36 hours. So I had everything got squished and moved and shuffled, and every single day off and catch up day just disappeared. And I think it's, and I learned the work, your brain does start to fry. It does start to become a very uphill battle. And
I don't enjoy days off. I don't enjoy days off. And I know I look pitiful, but I think I'm giving up. I think some things I'll get in shape. I'll take stupid walks. I'll do some good things.
Yeah, I have to do something. I can't do nothing at all. But I think I've learned that it's important that you have to take days from the booth to regenerate. Absolutely.
Yeah.
You need to look after yourself.
Yeah.
Whether or not you want to, or whether or not it feels like whether or not you're itching to get back there and record a little bit more, you need to push yourself to to recharge and to let the instrument rest and to let the brain rest.
Yeah, because busyness does what I've noticed, especially after this last 2 years. I think it's being a freelancer. Busyness is like a drug. You get like a dopamine hit from having produced or done, done the to-do list. It's like a drug. It's like an addiction. Your mind always on. Okay, so Kim wants to know, who would you be if you were a superhero, and what superhero would Rich say you were? I'm assuming Rich is the husband.
Yes, I
Okay.
am not competent enough to be a superhero at all.
Superheroes are just born one day and they get lucky or get chemically
I mean, I don't know. I'd like to be able to fly. Flying would be fun. That's all I know.
Superman.
Probably, yeah, Superman would be good. Except
Yeah.
I would not look that good. I would not look that good in spandex. So.
Well, they're saying you are a superhero to many of us, Joel. Laura says that. So see what I'm saying, though? I said, oh, Joel's coming on. And all of a sudden, it was like, everyone was like, I love Joel. I'm Joel's special friend. Joel and I are very, very close. So it's like you endear yourself to people. Do you like people? I'm assuming you're not a misanthrope because
no, I'm an introvert, but
yeah.
I do really care about my students. I do really I love feeling connected to them and get very personally invested in their progress and their success and their struggles. And so but in terms of, I think I'm an introverted extrovert, which is a weird thing to be.
Everyone says they're introverts. Literally, I'm the only one I know that doesn't say I'm an introvert.
Yeah.
Like everyone says, I think it's maybe because the field that we're in.
Yeah.
I think it attracts introverts.
Yeah. Says the woman who doesn't want to be on camera.
But I do when I'm skinny. Oh, when I'm skinny, you can't get me away from a camera.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, my friend took your class and she was like, oh, and it's full body and you're on there, you're acting. I'm like, what do you mean full body? Shoulders up, right? She's like, no, full body. I'm like, oh, no, I'm not doing that. But when I'm skinny, I'm out there doing burlesque, stripping off. I've got no problem.
Oh, there you go.
But,
awesome.
But that's from being in LA trying to break into acting for too many years. LA will like twist your brain.
Yeah.
So Bermuda, but where did you spend most of your adult life? Where did you?
So Bermuda from the age of 3 until the age of 16. Then I went to USC for my undergrad and my master's for theater. And then moved to London. I was there for 3 years working there. Then lived in New York for 5 years. Where I met Rich, and then we decided to buy a 100-year-old theater in Indiana and start a theater.
Wait. Okay, so where did you guys meet? Was it like eyes across the room, or
we met
you
online.
hated each other for a year? What?
We met online.
Okay, so you were like,
we met on the dynasty. We met on it is now extinct. It is called gay.com.
That's actually kind of cool if you're gonna meet online.
Yeah.
How long did you guys talk before you actually saw each other?
Oh God, I don't know, probably like a week. Not long.
You sound like you're good friends too, huh?
I think we are. I mean, we both work from home, so you kind of have to be. We are very much in a bubble, the two of us. So you kind of have to get along.
1,000-year-old theater. How did that come up?
100-year-old theater, not 1,000.
100-year-old theater, but what was it, like a long-held dream? It just showed up in the classifieds one day, or what?
We had produced a couple things in New York, and we liked the idea of starting a theater company, and we looked all over the East Coast. And we're kind of close to giving up because we just couldn't find a space that was financially feasible and aesthetically viable. And then we happened upon this old vaudeville theater in really the middle of nowhere in Indiana. And it was a mistake because we fell in love with the building and didn't really process quite what Indiana meant for two gay guys trying to start a theater company.
Oh.
And we gave it 10 years and we worked our butts off and we did some beautiful things. We did some amazing productions, and the people that supported us were over the moon about it and very passionate and very and wonderful. And we worked with some incredible talent. And we renovated the space and it just looked beautiful and was a real showpiece. But we just couldn't make living there work emotionally or business wise. And we just realized we couldn't spend the rest of our life like that.
Was this, how long ago was this?
I've been narrating now for 6 years. So probably about, we left there going on 5 years ago now. So we decided to end that. And, I was also a college professor at the time. I was teaching theater, in Indiana, but we needed something else. We needed a new avenue. And that's when the narrating came in. A lovely, wonderful friend of mine who's a brilliant narrator in her own right. And I've known her since I was about 16, from Bermuda. Her name is Beverly Crick, and she does a lot of historical romances, and she's wonderful. She's the one who said to me, "You should try doing this. I think you'd be very good at it. You have a skill set. Your dialect skills are very strong. It's a unique thing to sell. You have the combination of British and American that most people don't have. Give it a shot." And I did, and it just took off. I was very, very, very lucky.
So at what point can you think off the top of your head? I mean, I can a couple of times when something's come up and I felt like, wow, that giddy, like, I can't believe I got it. That feeling of like a 10-year-old on a sugar high. Can you think of like the last time you had one of those? A book comes up that you're really excited about, or when you guys bought the theater, or give us a few highlights.
I got a book called The Astonishing Life of August March from Harper through Find a Way. And when I read it, it just blew my socks off. And Ryn Krause, who works at Find a Way, has been great to me. She's been a real champion of my work. And she kind of handpicked me for it. And she was like, "I knew you would be right for this. I knew this was you." She even she proofed it herself because she wanted to. She was like, "I want to listen to you read this book." So she decided to proof it herself. And I just kind of knew it was a me book. And it won us a Sovas Award, and it won us an Earphones Award, and it was very, very good. It was very, very good to us. And it was all the writing. It was just brilliant writing. But it was that meant a lot to me. And then and she sent me David Copperfield too. So it's whenever a publisher comes to you and gives you a you book. Very often I get sent the stuff that like any one of the guys that do gay romance could do, or the 17th Dragon Shifter book or whatever. I do a lot of genre stuff. But when a publisher goes, that's a Joel book, that really resonates and means so much to me. When they kind of get what I want to be, and find something that just sort of is in the pile that says Joel.
Yeah, and they send you the thing going, would you be interested in being put forward? And your first reaction is, yes, please.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, because I always tell them, don't bother. I forget about an audition the minute I do it, or the minute you tell me about a book, I forget about it. And then it's a lovely surprise if I get it. But I recently had one and they were like, would you be interested? I'm like, yes, I'll be sitting here crossing my fingers. Let me know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm getting to do a Cole Porter biography in about a month.
Ooh.
That I'm very excited about.
Do you like doing biographies?
I do. I like doing theater stuff. I really love doing theater stuff. And, you know, Cole Porter was gay, and it's musical theater, and it's all the kind of stuff that I love.
Yeah.
So that'll be really, really fun. So I'm excited about that.
I should ask now, we briefly touched on this before the call, for UK people that are wondering about time slots, and you had said something about
and the classes.
Yeah, and the classes and the UK timings. Do you want to tell them what you told me?
We'll try and do it again. What's happened a couple times, we have done them in the afternoon so that it worked for UK people. Once or twice. What's tricky is that afternoon weekday time, because a lot of the people that are interested in taking my class are still juggling different jobs. You know, they're not yet full-time narrators, they're part-time. Or the daytime doesn't work for them as well as the evening. So, and what's happened a couple times is I've had like 5 British people ask me if I would do an afternoon class, and I've scheduled it, and then almost all of them were like, oh, I'm going to do it next time, or I can't quite fit it in, or financially it doesn't work for me right now. And then what happened was we then actually couldn't make that class work for enough people, because all those folks that said they wanted it at that time
weren't able to make it.
So the best way, honestly, for me to make it happen would be if a couple of British people got together and said, do you want to take it with each other? Do you want to take it at the same time? And then came to me as a kind of not a huge gaggle, but a small group, you know, even 3 or 4 will make it work. And say, you know, we want to take it together, and then I'll make that class happen for them. Okay. Yeah, absolutely. I definitely want to do it again, so that people, when we did that afternoon slot, we had someone, I think in Saudi Arabia, take it. We had people from all over that the afternoon worked for. So I would like to again, definitely.
I love that. Okay, I'm going to hit you with this one. For people that are going to be watching this in 60 years on YouTube, what final words a funny joke, words of wisdom, what would you like to leave people with? And if they took away nothing else from this call, what would you like them to? I know Kim's reminding me, I used to say, but I stopped because I couldn't have Kim one day and I forgot the name of it. Or if you were in a school and you know how they bury a time capsule with important things that somebody's going to open up in 60 years.
Oh my God.
What would you want somebody to see? Oh, this was Joel, to remember you by?
What a good question, and how inadequate I feel trying to answer it.
No, we all have something that we think is really important to say in our whole life. Do you know what I mean? We all have something we'd like to leave people with. You've already left us with so much on this call, but
find a way to fall in love with the material. I think
that's good. Yeah.
Find a way to if it's, and sometimes I had to do it very recently. I was recording a book and I was just like, this book needs an editor. God help me. It was rough. And I went to Goodreads and I read the 5-star reviews. I filtered out the 5-star reviews and I read the 5-star reviews and I read what made people love the book. And I did it for those people. I figured out how to fall in love with the book. I figured out what made them love the book. And I figured out how to adore the material through them.
That's a really good idea. That's a really good idea, going in and finding good reviews. I used to have a corporate job I hated, and I'd have to remind myself of what I loved about the people whenever I went in to like have a meeting with them. I'd have to like think of one thing. I think in the end it got to the like, I really like her shoes, because like there's nothing else, but you find something.
Absolutely.
I love that.
I've had people say to me, oh my God, my favorite narration you've ever done is such and such a book. And I hated narrating it. I wanted to tear my toenails out while I was doing it. And you know, what better compliment is there than that you managed to connect to it and feel empathy for the characters and love the material. Sometimes,
or even look up the authors, even if it's through a publisher. You can look up the author's bio on Amazon and read as much as you can about the author and make yourself love the author. So you're doing it for the author. You're honoring the authors.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I love that. It's very, very nice. I love that. That's going to go up as the title of this call. Thank you so much. I'm honored to have met you. I was getting a tiny bit jealous. Every single other person in the world knew Joel. Now I can say, oh, Joel and I go way back.
Oh, Daniela, thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure. I'm so grateful.
It was an honor, and you're going to have even more people are going to be clamoring for your class.
Oh,
I wish you the very best.
Can I mention how they can find me? So it's, if they're interested in the class, it's actingforaudio.com.
Actingforaudio.com. And we're also going to put it in the about section of the video as well.
Amazing.
So they can look at it. So any links will be in the about section, but if you're on this call, you won't see that for 2 weeks. So actingforaudio.com. Right. And I will post that in the group tonight as well.
Thank you. It's been such a pleasure. I'm very grateful. I really appreciate it. Thank
you. Wonderful. And thank you guys for joining. You've all been stars as always. Take care. Bye, Joel. Bye. Bye, everyone.